Outrage and shock across the country from parents who found out our own federal government was using the FBI to investigate parents who spoke up at school board meetings. Even the National School Board Association apologized for a letter they sent to President Biden describing parents' actions as equivalent to domestic terrorism and hate crimes. The fallout has been intense, but also gave way for a massive movement of grassroots organizations who are taking back parental rights in the classroom. One of those influential groups is Parents Defending Education, and President Nicole Neily testified before Congress and joins us this morning. Good morning. I saw your powerful testimony. First, Nicole, I want to talk about this letter that started it all with the National School Board trying to silence parents. What was the domino effect, and how did it lead to this hearing?
Sure. So in September 2021, the National School Boards Association sent a letter to President Biden requesting federal intervention into school board issues, invoking, among other things, the Patriot Act, and asserting that this was the reason that the federal government should get involved. And as you said, they said that this could be equivalent to forms of domestic terrorism and hate crimes. And so, unsurprisingly, families, when they saw that letter, were horrified, but they were even more astonished when 5 days later, which is absolutely lightning speed in Washington, D.C., Attorney General Merrick Garland sent a memo signed by him to the federal government, instructing that the FBI and all these different federal law enforcement agencies all partner together to investigate these issues. And so a lot of parents felt like their tax dollars had been weaponized against them, and they were scared because they wondered if they should continue their advocacy or not, because they were legitimately worried that they would get a knock at the door from the FBI.
Talk about the rights of parents and what every parent right now needs to know when they do not agree with what's happening in their child's school.
Absolutely. Parents have a constitutional right to petition their government for a redress of grievances. They have a right to speak, to assemble. There are very, very narrow exceptions to the First Amendment, where you're not able to threaten someone, you're not able to incite someone to violence, defamation, things like that. But what's interesting is we're now seeing school board officials that are claiming that speaking up, criticizing them is violent, is harassing, is hateful. And so this whole language thing has gotten very muddled. The parents, we want to assure them they do have the right to ask questions, to show up, to challenge their officials on all the different problems that parents have concerns about. And again, parents have very valid concerns, be it school closing, be it masking, be it curriculum, be it books. They have a right, and they should continue to do so. And if they're scared to do so, if they feel that something is going on, contact us. We will file public records requests. We will ask those questions to protect these families.
Nicole, when it comes to federal law enforcement, this got pretty deep, too. Tell us how the FBI's Counterterrorism Division got involved and the threat tab they used to label certain parents.
Sure. On October 16th, 2021, the head of the FBI's Criminal Investigative Division sent a joint memo with the FBI's Counterterrorism Division announcing the creation of a threat tag, EDU officials, to be attached to any reports that were filed with relation to school board officials. This only came out in November 2021 because a whistleblower provided it to Chairman Jim Jordan of the House Judiciary Committee. And in May of 2022, he said that they had received dozens of reports that this had, in fact, been used against families. And so these are not invalid concerns. These are not just, crazy worries. These are things that have actually happened to American families.
I want to go over some of your testimony from yesterday. You said this: the question remained, however, what was the genesis of such an outlandish memo by an otherwise irrelevant Beltway organization funded by public tax dollars at the district level, paid to state school board associations, and then funneled to a national headquarters? Now, this is in regards to the National School Board Association's memo that was sent to President Biden. What did you find to be the answer to this? What was the genesis of that letter?
I actually personally filed public records requests in the home districts of every single NSBA board member. They're all public school officials, to figure out who was involved in this. How did they feel about this? And what we found when we got those records requests back is that nearly every single person who was on the NSBA board had no idea this was taking place. They were horrified by it. But that, in fact, the acting executive director of the NSBA at the time, Chip Slavin, had been in contact with the White House for several weeks to gin this up. And there had also been conversations with the National Association of Secondary School Principals, the Superintendent's Association. And so there had been a lot of chatter in the education halls in Washington, D.C. before this letter even came out, which shows that, this cake was already baked. They knew what was going on. And it really, again, feels like the powers that be wanted this to happen. This was not a coincidence.
Nicole, you mentioned earlier parents have a constitutional right to assemble, to speak, to petition their government for a redress of grievances. But if a school board member or anyone disagrees, all of a sudden you said that these parents' viewpoints or tone is labeled as violent, offensive, or hateful. So talk about some of the Supreme Court cases that protect their speech. And what's your advice ultimately to parents and also your message to Congress?
Well, one thing that we tell parents is they want you to be afraid. They don't like this criticism. So for so long, all of these school board members have been used to operating behind closed doors. They want to spend your money. They want to raise your children without your input. We have seen endless videos of these school board officials saying, we know better than you do. Parents don't have master's degrees. That's an insult, and parents should never take that. Parents know their children better than these elected officials ever will. And at the end of the day, our children are only there until they're 17, 18 years old, whereas we are in our children's lives for their entire life. And so don't back down. Don't be afraid. There is ample Supreme Court precedent protecting parents' rights to speak up, children's rights to speak up, where speech cannot be chilled, and speech can also not be compelled by students. And so we want to remind people you are on very, very firm legal footing. And if you have questions, please reach out to us because we'd like to answer your questions and help you.
President of Parents Defending Education, Nicole Neily, we appreciate you joining us this morning. Hope you have a great weekend.